Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just checking audibility. Can we hear at the back? Yeah? Lovely. Thank you. Welcome everybody to Rushmore Borough Council's offices for this special joint meeting of the Council's Environment and Leisure and Youth Policy Review Panel. My name is Ian Harrison, I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of the Council, and I'm just saying a couple of words before the meeting opens, and then we'll move into the formal business of the evening. Firstly, there's clearly a number of people here tonight who will not be familiar with the building. Just by a matter of health and safety and fire safety, you'll be pleased to know we are not practicing any fire evacuation procedures tonight, but in the event that you hear a long continuous bell, please calmly leave the room from the door that you came in and walk back out and leave via the main entrance that you came in. That's the easiest way to do things, but as I say, we're not planning on any of that tonight. Secondarily, there's a fair amount of equipment over here to my left. That's because all of the proceedings tonight are going out on the web. It's all being webcast. So some reminders about that. For anybody speaking, members, please use a microphone so that we get audibility at the back, and project yourselves well so that it picks up on the sensor mics that we have in the chamber, so that people viewing on the web can pick everything up that's being said here tonight. So the first job of the evening will be to elect a chairman for the procedure. Once we have a chairman in place, the chairman will describe the process that we are to go through tonight. So as we move into the formal business of the evening, my first job is to seek any nominations for the chair for tonight's meeting of this Joint Environment and Leisure and Youth Policy Panel. Do you have any nominations? Councillor Gladstone nominates Simon Bedford, seconded by Councillor Core. Do we have any other nominations for the chair? No? So in the event of no other nominations, I'll ask Councillor Bedford to come forward and to chair and conduct the proceedings from here.
The first thing I have to do is to just very quickly appoint a vice chair. You can't hear me? No. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Sorry. Can you hear me at the back now? Yeah. Right. Thank you. Yes, the first thing I've got to do this evening is to actually appoint a chairman, a vice chairman, just in case I have a funny turn or something. So I will nominate David Gladstone, if somebody will second him, please. Thank you. John Marsh, thank you. Welcome, everybody. There's a good few of you here, and it's really good. I can't hear you. I'm sorry, I can't. Can you hear me now? Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, I will continue using this one. As you know, this evening is an important meeting, and it's good that so many of you are here, and we have now got the joint committee because it involves the Leisure and Youth panel and also the Environment panel. So we're here as a joint committee, and we will work as a joint committee for this evening. It's quite interesting because there's a lot to get through, and to start with, I will just run through who's here and how we're going to proceed with you, so you know what to expect. We've got quite a few people here this evening. We've got Councillor Morrishian, who's portfolio for Leisure and Youth. We have the Councillor Martin Tennant, who isn't actually here at the moment, but is due. But he will be here, I'm hoping, and he's the portfolio holder for Environment and Service Delivery. There's Peter Amies and Ashley Sharp from the Council's Community Environment Services Department, and Keith Holland and Nick Irvine from the Council's Planning Services. So there's a good variety of officers here who should have some answers for you, we hope. I'll just carry on to tell you how it's going to go. The first person who will be speaking in a while will be Peter Amies, and he's going to make an introductory presentation on the background to this issue and provide details of the consultation process and the results. He will also identify options for the way forward. The presentation complements the background documents, and you have which are the original report to the Cabinet in July, and the analysis report formed the consultation. I will also ask at that stage, after he's spoken, if the Cabinet members wish to make any comment at all at this stage. After that, there will be a period where we're going to invite speakers from the residents. We have got names, I will name them. They can come in and speak later. It's Helen Perry, David Scott, who I believe is late at the moment, but I hope he's going to get here. And there's Keith Ledgerwood, Barry Gilmore, and Mike Bartley. After those representations, after they've spoken and they sit down, the members here, the Joint Committee, if they wish to ask them anything, they can do. So just to perhaps for them to clarify anything, they can do that. And after they've spoken and any questions, I will ask them to sit down at the next one and so on. We've also had some emails that I think you've probably got from England Golf, which I think is, because I've got a copy here and I think most of you have got one. It came in quite late, so you may not have a chance to read it. And also we have, once the presentations are heard, members will be asked to raise any questions with the officers or the Cabinet members. You've also got Richard Lloyd here from the Army Golf Club. He's sitting over there quite close to the door. He has got to leave at 8:15, and if he's still here when the questions are asked, he's happy to answer questions. If not, and anybody wants to speak to him afterwards, and he's not here, then let us know and we can give you a telephone number or address so you can contact him. So the joint panel will then debate the issue and consider coming to a view to recommend to the Cabinet when it meets on the 12th of December 2017, which of course is an executive decision. We're just putting our thoughts forward to them. So if you're happy now, I think everybody's sitting comfortably. I'll get Peter Ames to come forward and do the presentation, and it's going to take a good 20 minutes, so maybe a little bit longer. So I'm hoping you can see it when it's on the screen. It's on the screen behind us. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chairman. And is that on? No. Thank you, Chairman. It's on now. Just to give an introduction to what I'm going to do this evening, a reminder of why suitable alternative natural green space, or as it's known as SANG, is required, what our requirement is as a borough, some emerging SANG options, which we will be considering, what the catchment areas are for SANG, because that varies and people may not be up to speed on that, and then some information on the golf course, the background to it, as the Chairman has said, the consultation results, and also touch on a petition that we've received. I will then go through and let everyone know what the decision process is from here on in, give a summary, and then just some options, but I'm sure members will come up with other options for consideration. Why is SANG required? Well, the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area provides an internationally important habitat for bird species, such as the nightjar, woodlark and darkwood warbler, and is prevalent within and outside the borough. And you can see Farnborough and Aldershot in the middle there, surrounded by SANG. It's enshrined in European law under their Birds and Habitats Directive, and that's been transposed to UK law under the Conservation of Habitats and Species Regulation 2010. Housing developers must provide or contribute towards SANG as an alternative for recreational activities to encourage possible visitors away from the protected areas that surround us. SANG is required to enable all housing development in the borough. Residential development is key to support our regeneration of the town centres, where we'll have residential and retail. The current SANG supply that we have is diminishing, with only 23 dwellings left. That was at the end of August 2017. The South East Plan, policy NRM6, requires 8 hectares of SANG land per 1,000 new occupants. and residual SANG requirement over the plan period is for land to mitigate up to 3,000 new homes. Housing need between now and 2032 is a minimum of 7,850 dwellings up to 8,700. We already have in that time period completions of 836 and permissions in place with SANG of 4,897. As I said, our SANG capacity is dwindling. We have 3 dwellings out of the Hawley Meadows left, 12 dwellings at Southwood Woodland, 8 at Roe Hill Nature Reserve, and the Wellesley Woodlands has already been ring fenced for the Wellesley development, where there will be 3,850 dwellings. To deliver housing identified in the local plan, as I said earlier, the SANG is required for up to 3,000 homes. The net affordable housing need is around 160 dwellings per annum. In 2016-17, 140 people presented as homeless, and the council supported over 400 homelessness prevention cases. 1,200 people are on the housing allocation scheme, of which 75% are likely to have income below £20,000 per annum and therefore require the affordable housing. To give a flavour for the Aldershot Town Centre allocation, the Galleries requires 300 dwellings by 2021 and another 200 dwellings by 2026 if it is to go ahead. Union Street East, we're looking at 60 dwellings up to 2021 and another 70 dwellings up to 2026. The Aldershot Railway Station, we're looking at 30 dwellings by 2021 and Hippodrome House, 70 dwellings by 2021. The Council has explored options including Ball Hill and Farnham Quarry. These are not viable at present due to landowner aspirations and natural requirements. However, there are some emerging options, including Bramshot and Hawley Park Farm, where there is potential mitigation for 1,500 dwellings. That will be subject to approval. However, as you'll see later, the catchment does not reach the Aldershot Town Centre. Blandford House has potential mitigation of 730 dwellings, but this is in MOD ownership and cannot be guaranteed, and some of the land will be used to mitigate the residential dwellings on the site. Southwood Golf Course is the only one that is in our ownership and can provide mitigation for up to 2,500 dwellings. This would actually reach the Aldershot Town Centre. Tottenham Pools, potential mitigation for around 150 dwellings, but again, this is not in our ownership, belonging to Surrey County Council and Guildford, and there has been ongoing discussions for around 10 years without success. The Council is exploring with Natural England whether there is any residual surplus SANG at Wellesley, again recognising this is not in our ownership. Here I can show you the catchment area, so you can see on the left there for Bramshot, the 5 kilometre catchment falls short of the Aldershot Town Centre, as does the Hawley Park Farm with a 4 kilometre catchment. Here we have the Tottenham Pools, which clearly, as I said earlier, will reach the Aldershot Town Centre, as does the Southwood Golf Course, which covers most of the borough. And finally, Blandford House, with a 5 kilometre catchment and in the middle of the borough, would cover the majority of our borough. Given the difficulty of finding SANG, the Cabinet has considered the possibility of converting the Southwood Golf Course into natural open parkland to include walking, cycling, fitness trails and natural play structures. This will deliver up to 50 hectares of SANG to enable the delivery of up to 2,000 new homes across the borough. The tender for the golf course, which is currently operated by MAC Trading, is due for renewal in the spring of 2019, and the cost to the council at the moment is £40,000 per annum. The council will recognise the social, sporting and health benefits the golf course provides. There are around 25,000 rounds, but this varies depending on the weather, played by casual players, season ticket holders, club members and societies. We also have identified there are alternative golf courses within a 10-mile radius, which generally accept new members and casual play, but these are more expensive. Both the Southwood Golf Course and the Army Golf Course, being local, have the benefit also of being flat and easy to get around for those with mobility and health issues. Being a SANG will protect the land as green public open space in perpetuity, and developer contributions will pay for its creation and upkeep for the next 80 years. Natural England have indicated they would support the use of this land as SANG, subject to the outcome of a feasibility study, which would require a management plan, flood risk assessment, visitor surveys, etc. Here I'll just give a flavour of some local courses, and if I compare the adult midweek charge at Southwood, it's around £20, at Oak Park more expensive at £30, as is Pine Ridge at £29, the Army Golf Course midweek is £60, and Hartley Whitney is £40. To help inform any decision, Cabinet approved the consultation in July 2017. Consultation took place throughout August and September using an online survey with paper copies available. This was extended by a week following a request by residents. It has been widely promoted through the web, social media, leaflet drops, press releases, static displays and at meetings. Considerable interest has been shown from golfers, local residents and the media. Going on to the consultation results, we see 2,413 responses, 63% were male, 87% were white British, and around 11% considered they had health conditions or disability which limited their daily activities. As you can see on the slide, there was a good widespread range of age groups that responded to the consultation. In terms of the overall result, we have 39% said close the Southwood Golf Course and turn it into natural parkland, and 61% said keep Southwood Golf Course as it is. When we look at the known residents from within the borough, 50.6% said close the Southwood Golf Course, and 49.4% said keep it as it is. Going on in the consultation, over 1,660 responded, 281 indicated they were members of the golf course, and 1,379 indicated they were not. If the golf course were to close, what would they do? 554 respondents indicated they would give up playing golf, 391 will play on another course less often, and 385 will play at another course about the same number of times or more. You can see on the chart there the number of rounds played by the respondents, ranging from daily up to never. There's a table there that shows if a new natural parkland was created at Southwood, what they would like to see. And you've got 54% open space for walking and dog walking, 51% nature trails, 47% said other, and we asked them to tell us what, which I'll come on to in a moment. Cycle paths was 44%, natural play structures 40%, 37% for fitness trails, 26% for a green gym, 22% for community orchard, 14% for orienteering, and just under 10% for small allotment. Under other, there were 944 comments, and those that appeared more than 20 times included keep the golf course 414 times, none would not use it 170 times, referring to the parkland. These things are already available locally 70 times, a cafe or pub 52 times, a water or play park 52 times, and a 9-hole course 32 times. Comments from those wanting to close Southwood Golf Course, of which there were 609, and mentioned over 20 times, were we need more parkland 262 times, parkland will benefit more people than the golf course 207 times, there is an issue with subsidy for the golf course 83 times, we'll allow more housing, which is more important than golf 80 times, plenty of other places around for golf 57 times, land will be protected 46, concerns around extra housing and infrastructure 37, it will benefit wildlife and biodiversity 29, we want more affordable housing 26, allow regeneration 24, and health benefits 24. Of those wishing to keep the Southwood Golf Course, there were 1,224 comments, those over 20 times being the golf course is affordable, 321, plenty of other open space, 173, the health benefits, 171, It's the best public course in the area, 162. The course is well used, 161. No more housing wanted and concern about the infrastructure, 143. The social benefits of the golf course, 141. It's a flat course, easy to play for those less mobile and beginners, 128. Easy to get to, 66. Cost of maintaining the park, 56. Course is used to raise money for good causes, 53. Course already a green space with wildlife, 45. A community asset, attracting people to the area, 38. The Southwood well used, but needs better maintenance, 33. Concern the golf course will be developed on for housing or airport expansion, 32. Concern about antisocial behaviour if no course, 30. Investing and promote the course, 30. And do the compromise with the 9-hole course, 21. We've also received a petition from 2,366 petitioners from the Save Our Southwood campaign team. That petition accepts the need for additional housing, but believe other ways of achieving the housing target. They believe the council has enough SANG provisioned or targeted to meet requirements up to 2032. They recognise it's vital for health and well-being of users through physical activity and social community, and it's accessible for all ages and abilities. There are 25,000 rounds for members and non-members, and closure does not guarantee it will be maintained and enjoyed by as many people. Finally, it's a beautiful 40-year-old course at an affordable price, supporting many local charities. Moving on to the decision process from here on in, tonight's joint meeting will look at a pre-decision scrutiny and prepare a response to the Cabinet. Full Council on the 7th of December will consider the petition, which I've just referred to, and Cabinet on the 12th of December will receive a full report and then will make their decision. Going on to a summary now. SANG provision at Bramshot and Hawley not guaranteed, but would support 1,500 dwellings, which should be sufficient for Farnborough. The issue is around the Aldershot Town Centre, where we require SANG for 730 dwellings. The timescales for delivery in Aldershot is we need 460 dwellings up to 2021 and enough SANG for 270 dwellings up to 2026. Only Southwood Golf Course is in council ownership and can be guaranteed. SANG may emerge from Blandford House, which we spoke about earlier, or Tonga Pools, but neither of these can be guaranteed. The online consultation with known residents has resulted in 50.6% in favour of closing the golf course and turning it into parkland, and 49.4% wanted to keep the golf course open as it is. There may be an option, as there has been some interest, to retain a 9-hole course and provide a smaller area of SANG and as an extension to Southwood Woodland, which would reach the Aldershot Town Centre. So coming down 3 potential options, but I say there may be a variety of others that come out of this evening, is really to look at whether we close the Southwood Golf Course to provide guaranteed SANG to support the regeneration of the town centres, particularly Aldershot, additional borough-wide housing, and provide open parkland available for everyone to use for walking, cycling and informal recreation. We could, as another option, explore the feasibility of providing a self-funding 9-hole golf course and the release of sufficient SANG to enable the regeneration of the Aldershot Town Centre and housing development to the south of the borough. And finally, we could retain the Southwood Golf Course and continue to look for alternative SANG, recognising this could either prevent, limit or slow the regeneration of Aldershot Town Centre and housing development to the south of the borough. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Brownies. I'm sure everybody could hopefully see all of that and understand exactly what he was trying to tell us, because it's very important you have all heard that. I will in a minute ask the Cabinet members if they want to say something, but before I do that, the presentation is important, I agree, but when people are speaking, whether it's a cabinet member or it's the public that are going to come and speak later, or any of us around here, will people please listen to what they're saying? Because it's important that we hear what they're saying to help us with our decisions. So if there's a lot of chatter or back chatting, shall we say, we may miss something. So please let people speak. So I'm going to ask now perhaps if I'm going to ask first of all if the current members want to speak, and so Martin Tennant, I'll ask you first, shall I?
Question, Madam, the Chair. Why are the Cabinet members being asked to address before others? Are they members of this panel?
No, they're not, but they are the Cabinet members, and they've been totally involved with all these things that have been going on, and it's just something we felt as part of the general running of the things.
A question, Chair. So who will be summing up at the end?
We will, they won't.
Okay.
They're not going to have part of the discussion. We're just asking them questions if you want to.
I've no problem with them speaking, but as we as a panel, shouldn't we approve them speaking to us?
Oh, check this.
It's just for them to add to the presentation.
They have actually been invited to come along to speak tonight. Well, not to speak, but
Was that
to...
the midterm meeting, Madam Chair?
Sorry?
Was that agreed at the midterm meeting?
Yes, it was.
No. I'll ask my colleagues, was that agreed at the meeting?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to check on this. Perhaps I'll now actually ask you, are you happy for them to speak? They're not going to be part of any decision making. It's just that if you've got any questions you'd like to ask. So, are you happy that they...
I think they should be here to answer questions, Chair, not to make a statement.
They are just if we want to ask them.
Yes, I don't think this isn't that forum. This is the backbench members' panels to scrutinise the Cabinet, not for the Cabinet to put their case to us. Unless I misunderstand something, Mr. Chair.
No, I think that the whole is just for them to make comments for us to pick up on, but not for them to fund any decision making. It is a bit, I have to say, we probably have missed that point somewhere, and I apologise.
Well, I think it needs to be corrected before we carry on, Chair.
Answer for the lady.
Happy to.
Can I ask the panel then, if at this stage they are happy for them to speak, for us to ask them questions?
Chair, I prefer them to stay because if we do need to ask them any questions, we actually have the Cabinet members available to us in our decision process.
How does everybody else feel? It's very important we get
No,
this.
just ask for a vote on the matter. I'm quite happy if I can say this. I'm happy.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I suggest we go for a vote on the matter and just say, are you happy for the Cabinet to say, and make the speech, and we'll move on from there.
Speak into the microphone.
Can I say, Chairman, what Councillor Gladstone suggested is not what we were talking about. His idea is that they should be here for us to tell them what our ideas are, not to hear what their ideas are. The idea is that we are the scrutiny people, we are the ones who look at this, come up with recommendations, and we say to the Cabinet, this is what we think, not what we want, because we know the Cabinet will make their own decisions. But it shouldn't be the other way around. The Cabinet shouldn't be coming here telling us what their ideas are, we should be telling them what we think.
Sorry, Chair, can I respond to that?
Actually, can I ask Adam Jackman, please, to speak, because he has put his speaker on.
Thank you, that's perfect. Before we turn this into a nice grandstanding event for the evening, can we, before we turn this into something else,
You're right.
granted, Keith, it is good protocol. The easiest way around that may well be just to turn around to members and say that the Cabinet members are here to provide further information for us, answer questions if we have. They've both probably got points they would like to make before we start the meeting. So if we call a vote to say, are we happy for the Cabinet members to make their points, and all the members agree, then they can say in the meeting, they can answer our questions, and that'll be the end of that.
Okay, how does everybody feel about that? So we really must move on, and I apologise if this has been a blip, because I admit that's what it is, without how do people feel about this? Because I'm quite happy to say to them at this stage that they can't speak, if that's what everybody wants. If you'd rather have no input into this at all, then that's the way forward. I'm happy that that's the way forward.
Chair, was that they should be here to answer our questions, but not here to make a statement.
Right.
No problem with the statement. We are. They have the opportunity at a cabinet meeting in 2 weeks' time to put their case forward. Tonight is about scrutiny, Chair.
In that case, can I ask the panel if they're happy to stay here and answer questions but not to speak now? Are you happy with that?
Yes.
That they can stay and answer questions that we may ask, but they're not to speak now? Yes. That's okay? Thank you very much. Right. Moving on. So in that case, I'll go right on to we have some representation from organisations and individuals here, and I would like to ask the first person, who is Helen Perry, who will come forward.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I was a little bit nervous in the first place. Now that's thrown me completely in. More nervous than ever. So my name is Helen Perry. I just need to introduce myself. I've come here today to try and support keeping open the golf course for various reasons, but primarily from a possible education improvement in the area. With its usage. I will just say a few things that I need to put out into the public. I am employed in education in Hampshire. I've been employed in education in Hampshire for the past 17 years in a variety of different roles. The points that I put across tonight are personal opinions and not in any way connected to my placement of work, which is a further education college in Hampshire. They are purely my personal opinion. So the closure of the golf course, well, I was very saddened to hear about that. I've been a local member of the public in Rushmore since 1982 when my parents moved here from Cambridge. My dad moved here for employment reasons. He was keen to move to Farnborough. It was a place that he'd known from childhood, having come down to the air show from London, and he was about to start a career in Whitehall, commuting from Farnborough. Farnborough was the place that he chose. Both myself and my siblings were all educated in Rushmore. My son is currently at school in Rushmore. I would like to propose that the golf course is kept open in certainly, preferably, full capacity, but at the same time I do recognise the need for housing improvement in the borough, and if the option to make it slightly smaller and enable some housing to go ahead was our only option, then I think that there are some viable educational benefits that can come out of that. So we know the area. You don't need me to tell you about the area. We know that it's of environmental interest. We also know that it floods. We also know that it is a well-used sports facility, as much as we agree or disagree on the figures. Also, around that area, I live very close to the area, albeit unfortunately the other side of the railway track, which was deemed not the area that should be given any information about the survey. I'm on the wrong side of the track. Remains of interest to me as a family, and in particular my child. My child is a Year 6 student in a local school. So we know that there is a very buoyant and fantastic Rushmore Football Club that is based in Southwood. We know that there is a fantastic cricket club that is based in Southwood. We know that there is an existing SAN that is environmental interest. I'd like to propose that this whole area, in line with your proposals and area plan to have a civic quarter, a cultural quarter in the borough, becomes a sport, leisure, education area in the borough, and that the golf course is part of that, along with the cricket club and the football club, the football facilities that are there. I'd also suggest that there is room for some really good facilities to be managed for outdoor education, leisure management, environmental sciences, hospitality and sports sciences, and health and well-being in connection with the outstanding provision that you have at the FE and sixth form colleges within the borough. You don't need me to tell you the results of the local schools in the area. I don't want to go into that. But as a parent, it's fairly worrying how low our results are in comparison to those not only in the rest of Hampshire, but in comparison nationally to the results across the country. You can look at your own published area notes on education that was published, I think the Rushmore report was published October 2017. I've got it here, you don't need me to go through that, there's some sad stats in there. The college that I work at is an outstanding provision in some of its departments, not all of its departments. We are an outdoor education college, and there's just a few things that we've been doing in our local area that made me think perhaps we can do something for our youth and our youngsters in the area where we don't have an awful lot of municipal provision available for those that can't afford the very high fees for private clubs for youngsters and private courses in education that seem to have been popping up around the borough for people like myself to dig in our pockets to allow our kids to grow, I suppose. So we actually approached the council as a further education with an ambitious plan to develop and overtake a local football stadium to the college that had gone into administration, and the council in the area where I work were very forward thinking. They were very ambitious to keep hold of facilities for the youth in the town, and they allowed the college to work with them to develop a sports academy to keep the sports provision going. And I would argue that that is certainly a possibility with the golf club to keep that going and hopefully, as I say, create this sport and environmental outdoor education facility for our youth that's on the doorstep, that doesn't mean that the youngsters have to go outside of the borough to gain that kind of education. The colleges are fantastic in the area. I have worked at one of them in the past. I know the college well. But they are lacking in sports facilities, they're lacking in environmental space, and this would be an ideal opportunity if someone ambitious in the cabinet or in the education department were to approach one of those colleges. If, may it be either the Tech College or the newly established Prospect Trust, which I guess, according to the area review, part of that becoming a trust is to try and help change the face of education in the borough. That's my understanding of the government's area review for education within this area. So really, I am probably one of the youngest in the room. I noticed that, but I do care really passionately about education. I care really passionately about the area that I live in. I have lived here for a long time. I don't think anybody in this room wants to see people homeless anywhere in the country, certainly not on our doorstep. I would argue though that the affordable housing, albeit 20%, isn't necessarily affordable for the people that you're telling me are presenting themselves as homeless. Certainly I have siblings that can't afford your affordable housing that you have built recently. They live in the borough, they have jobs in the borough, they can't afford your affordable housing. Unless you're telling me you're going to build social housing, I'm not sure the 20% that's going to be affordable really makes a difference to the people in the borough that don't have housing. Okay, but none of us want to see people homeless, and I think that that's a bit of an unfair statement to put in there, because it suggests that you're going to build housing for those homeless, and I don't think you are. Okay, so the other thing in terms of this area, there are some fantastic little businesses, sports businesses, just outside of Rushmore that my son accesses, and I'd like to see the golf club given the opportunity and the help that the current people that own that site haven't had, essentially, because this did come completely out of the blue. No one from the council nipped down to the golf course, which is a good lunchtime walk just down there, and said, look, we need to, work out how we're going to help you to decrease this 40k subsidy that's causing us an issue in terms of money, and that is what was advertised on the initial plans. You did suggest that it was a major issue, that this sporting facility was costing you 40k, though I've read a report that the 2 football clubs are subsidised to the tune of 70k. Not really sure why rather I would argue over the 40k subsidy of golf clubs when we have 2 football clubs in one borough that costs us 70k. There are lots of things we could do. I don't think we need new cycling paths. Friends cycle, we cycle all over the place. I can walk all over the place. I don't have dogs, but I don't see people having problems walking their dogs. I'd like to see us think about the youth. I'd like to see us think about the youngsters. I'd like to think that we can utilise this land and this part of the town for my child's generation. And I think that the golf club is a really important facility that the youngsters can tap into, as I say, for both education. They just need the support. They need the support to do that. None of us have had that as far as I could see. I don't want to take up everybody's time. I do have quite a lot of suggestions in terms of education and how we can involve those. Actually went to school locally, and my school took me to the golf club to play golf lessons. We went down there, we used that facility. That doesn't happen anymore. I'm not sure why. It could happen. I certainly have friends that have gone off and done turf management and environmental studies and all of those kinds of things. That's available at Merris Wood, but you can't get to Merris Wood as a student unless your parents are able to pay the costs of the travel to that college, and that's the local outdoor education college. We live in an area of pockets of deprivation. Those students can't access that education to help pull themselves out of those pockets of deprivation, because they have to pay the cost to go to that college. And I think that's something we need to think about when we decide whether a facility that is well kept, well used, and can be utilised much better in the area is closed for what we don't really know what it's going to be.
Can I just ask any of the panel they'd like to ask Helen any questions about what she said? Councillor Cool.
Hello. As a teacher, I'm interested in the education side. I lost my way a little bit with what you were saying. Were you suggesting that this could be adopted or attached in some way to one of our further education
Yes, I was. Yes.
for educational purposes?
Absolutely. The area plan, certainly the National Area Review for post-16 education in the area talks very much about utilisation of the further education technical college and the sixth form, and how they could, in long term, provide support for the local schools. My argument is that this golf course could be part of that education system that would allow access to a variety of facilities to promote outdoor education, environmental sciences, flood planning, all of those kinds of things, and land for the colleges and the schools to expand on. We certainly used it. I went to Cove School, my sister went to Cove School, my father-in-law went to Cove School. We used the land, the local land around us. We used to run through the local land. We used to go and play golf at the golf course. Somewhere along the line, school started to just stay inside school closed gates and not access the facilities local to them. And I think that we need to think about the future of what we have in 3 secondary schools, 2 FE colleges, and utilise that land with the golf course to support the education, especially with the expansion that you hope to bring into the area in terms of numbers. They're only going to increase the kids. We do have to think about them. There's not much out there for them.
Thank you. Helen Zidder. Sorry, I know you can't hear me. I haven't got a mic at the moment, but Councillor Carter would like to have a word. Thank you.
Oh, good evening, everyone. I just wondered, you were saying, I didn't actually catch where you were. You were talking about other councils, obviously.
Yeah, I was trying I want to make it clear that I'm not talking on behalf of where I work, so I was trying to keep them out of it, if it makes sense. I work at Andover College. It's part of Sparsholt College, huge agriculture college. It's the biggest college merger in Hampshire. The football stadium I talked about was Andover's football stadium. The Sparsholt college is obviously an agriculture college, environmental sciences, outdoor education, those kinds of things are what we do. The alternative courses that aren't necessarily seen on your academic league tables.
Are there any more questions? Sorry, Councillor Marsh.
Not so much a question, but more a comment. I'm pleased you've now mentioned Sparsholt, because I know Merriswood is difficult to get to, but Sparsholt is quite easy to get to. You get there by train from Farnborough to Winchester, and Sparsholt College meet the students off the train in their mini coach. I know this because my son went to Sparsholt and he trained to be a golf course greenkeeper.
Absolutely. They absolutely do. When I'm working in London, as I do sometimes for the exam boards, I see the green jumpers opposite me. They have to pay for that. They have to pay for that train cost. Yes, it is subsidised. They probably don't have to pay for their coach. Not everybody can do that. I went to college in Beacon. I went to Basingstoke. At the time, the local education authority paid for my travel to Basingstoke because the course I wanted to do wasn't available at my local technical college. That's not the case anymore. Students have to pay. You can shrug your shoulders. Students have to pay. Not everybody comes from affluent backgrounds. Not everybody can afford to pay for their kids to get on the train and be educated. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Helen.
There's a high percentage of students in the borough that cannot afford a bus fare, even to Manor Park.
Helen, I've got two more speakers now. Councillor County and Councillor Drowse. Thank you.
Helen, thank you very much for speaking to us tonight, and I appreciate your concern for educational attainment and trying to encourage young people to participate in sport. But my question to you is, how do you account for the reduction in rounds being played at the golf course from 40,000 to 25,000 in recent years? Does this not reflect a failure in the golf course management to promote the facility to young people in schools? And secondly, do you not see opportunity in the proposal to convert the golf course to a park, to in fact expand opportunities to leisure activities rather than reduce them?
I think that's why I cautiously said at the beginning that there might be a middle ground where you keep some of that golf course there for those very things like turf management, hospitality, the catering facilities that exist there in terms of apprenticeships and developing those further within the borough. In terms of the decrease in membership, whenever I have been down there, I wouldn't be able to tell you who the managers of that golf course were. You have to be proactive, you have to be ambitious, you have to think about education. As someone in education, it's not my job I don't work in the borough, it's not my job here to go out and seek those kinds of things. Perhaps they just haven't had anyone ambitious enough to promote the golf course in that way. To the youth, I mean. I don't know what the barriers between the secondary schools and the golf course broke down. It might be to do with the severe lack of funding in the environment at the moment for schools. It might be for some other reason, but as a student, a child that went to a local secondary school, we went to the golf course, and many of my friends play golf there now because of it. Some of my friends went on to study turf management and leisure management because of the golf course. Those breakdowns in school relationships, I don't know. But you know, unless someone comes up with that idea or feels that is under threat, the golf course is under threat, then no one's going to proactively seek out those things, are they? That's why I'm suggesting we could do that now. As sad as too late that might be. No one knew that anyone was planning to shut up such a beautiful area of space.
Helen, can I just move on now? Sorry. David Grasser, and I've also Councillor Dibber, and I will call it stop there and something else. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Helen Johnson almost beat me to it, so thank you for standing and talking with us this evening. I know how nervous it can be. I fully understand where you're coming from. My 12-year-old is a young golfer, and we travel all over the country. We're quite lucky to be able to do that, but I fully understand that there are other people that are not able to do that. But from an education point of view, would you agree that an open green space is more beneficial to more people and is less costly than the small number of activities that can happen in a golf course, considering we've got other golf courses around, so
I think that
more educational activities going on in a field, you know.
But there are fields there. That's what I'm saying. There could be a compromise, and I think that the golf course in its existing area has facilities there that are benefit to education, and there are other areas in there that neither the golf course or anybody else can use because it's floods and this and the other that can be used. Another example of what you could put on there is a forest school, a small forest school. We have one of those at Sparshall. There's 3 in Hampshire that are available. But I think you need to have a compromise. You've got these existing fantastic facilities in the area. one of them being golf, one of them already football, one of them already being cricket. Not everybody wants to play football, and there is so much football.
Everybody wants to play golf.
No, but you're not going to shut all of the other facilities, and then there has been a decrease in use of both of those football stadiums. You're not in any hurry to shut those. But that's all I'm saying is that, I've been to that football stadium once in my life. Once. And I think if you looked at the stats of both of the football stadiums, in fact there's more than one football stadium, you've got Coburg in my road as well. You know, you've got Fleet Spurs taking up some of the land over there. There's so much football in the area. I would probably have thought that the decrease in numbers at the golf club is no different in the decrease in people watching those football matches.
I'll just follow up with one final question. What are your thoughts on the overall number of people wanting to actually close the courts?
I think it's really difficult to say, isn't it? Because some of the stats on there are, they talk about the percentage of those that gave a postcode, which is, so you don't really, what that says is you don't know how many people live in the borough support it if you give a postcode, essentially.
How many
So
people just put their name down?
exactly. So you can't really put that up as a figure because it's a kind of nonsensical figure in that you've guesstimated that everybody that didn't put down a postcode lives out of the area.
That's my issue. Should we actually take the petition then seriously, or are there just people putting names on there for the sake of putting their name on there?
Well, I don't think you should take petitions seriously. Of course you should take petitions seriously. It's a massive deal. You can see it's a massive deal for people. I think you should take petitions seriously. I think any petition should be taken seriously.
Just one more, Helen. Councillor Dibble.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it up. 2 points really. I'd like to. You mentioned on 2 or 3 occasions the compromise solution, which, as of 5 to 8 on Tuesday, the 7th of November, I think has a lot of merits, and I think it can solve both retention of an affordable golf course and hopefully the provision of affordable housing. And I think in both areas affordable is the important word. So what would really be the reaction as you, as a golfer and an enthusiast about the compromise position? Sorry, I'm a golfer. No, as not a golfer, but as someone, a local person. I think you said you play golf. Did I get that right?
No, she doesn't.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
I have played golf.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
I'm not a golfer. I'm a teacher. I don't have time.
I play golf. So that's the first point. The second point is, as a local, and it's probably really a question I'd ask the regular golfers, this issue of the numbers dropping. The question is, do you feel that Rushmore, as the owner of the golf course, have done enough to promote it as a facility? No. Therefore, if there had been the promotion and the marketing there from the body that own it, those numbers wouldn't drop as far as they had done.
I can only guess that, yes, they would have increased. I genuinely believe that I have friends that use that golf course and that they all went to school with me and they all went to the golf course as part of their education and as part of their everyday life. They probably went to the ski centre with the school as well. We've gone to the football stadium. I remember learning ice hockey, not ice hockey, but ice skating before the gym in Rushmore became a gym in Rushmore. We went swimming. We had a swimming pool at my junior school. As a parent of a year 6 child, both myself and my husband are lucky enough, fortunate enough to be in fairly well paid work, but so I haven't ever, since I've owned a house in the borough, had any promotion from the MAC trading. inviting me to go and play golf. So yeah, I think there has been a severe lack of management of that facility. Whether that is the council's fault, probably not. It was under a private company. Whether they wanted to improve it, seems not. But in and amongst all of that, there's very amazing people that are promoting their sporting facilities, and they have to do that because they're earning their money from it. I think that with the help, and that's what I'm suggesting, and the time, that there is viable money to be made in that facility. But they need the help. They need smart, creative, ambitious people, which they haven't got at the moment, and that's not their fault.
Helen, thank you very much, not just for saying what you said, because it certainly covered lots of aspects, but also very kindly answering questions of everybody. I think we've got one more person to come up that might not be here yet. Is that right?
Madam Chairman, yes, David Scott. He's a wounded military veteran. He can't make it. He's been stuck in a traffic jam on the M40. I've got his representation if you'll let me address the...
Please do. If everybody's happy with that, I think.
I'll get to a mic in a second.
Madam Chair, is it possible for the councillors to have their microphone? Can I ask, can you listen to the questions that are being asked?
These are, sorry. Yes. The mics we've got are all we've got actually, so it's a bit, I'm very sorry about that, it's quite embarrassing for us. The walkabout one is the best one we have, but the rest of them are not really obviously doing the job.
Can't afford the microphone.
This is all from here. In the back. Good evening. I'm Mike Bartley, but I'm speaking on behalf of David Scott. David Scott is a wounded military veteran. He was due to speak tonight. Unfortunately, he's got stuck in traffic. He may be able to get here later on with questions if you have any for him, but I'm going to speak and give you his representation. So David Scott is a former major in the Army. After losing a limb, he immersed himself in physical activity as a way of coping mentally and took part in the Invictus Games in 2014. He then had problems with the stomp of his wound, and in the last 18 months, it stopped him from being as physically active and it impacted on his mental well-being. David is now able to train again and competed for the UK team in golf at the recent games in Canada, the Invictus Games in Canada, winning a gold medal at golf. David had 3 points that he wanted to speak to. The first is affordability. So he says, having contacted several golf clubs in the immediate area requesting coaching, and if a discount could be applied to enable me to compete at the Invictus Games in Canada, only Southwood had the courtesy to reply to my appeal and for support in any way. They provided a discount on my annual golf club fees and also applied a reduction in hiring a buggy so that I could play golf and meet the requirements to enable me to take part in the Invictus Games. Without their support, guidance and friendship, I would not have been able to afford to play and compete at the Games. He goes on to mention the suitability of the course for disabled. He says the course is one of the best in the area, if not the best, for disabled golfers to play. It is a flat parkland type course that endears itself to those less physically able. And his final point is on the social influence. So it says, from a social perspective, the club and its members have improved my self-confidence, anxiety issues, and general well-being. As a military wounded veteran, both physical and mental well-being are crucial to my ever-improving psychological rehabilitation. The social aspect of the club allows me to interact with like-minded and very friendly people who all have a common interest in golf. His final comment is that we need to save this golf course, the only one in the area that is affordable to military veterans. The club is so very supportive of the military and our injured veterans. If it was not for this club, I would not have managed to be selected to represent the UK military at the Invictus Games in Canada. Please help save this great club.
Thank you very much. Do you want to just wait to see if anyone wants to ask you any questions?
I can, but I don't
think anybody does.
Make certain announcement.
No. Any sort of questions you'd like to ask anybody in the committee? Councillor Gladstone, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. If David was here, I think I speak for all of the members and we're sort of applaud him for what he's actually achieved. It's a very quick question. Helen earlier on spoke about they haven't got good managers to promote, etc. And obviously we're talking about the affordability. If we increase the subsidies and actually got good managers, it potentially, or if we didn't increase the subsidy, it's then going to naturally increase the cost. So how would how do we go about getting good managers in to promote it and make it a good cause? It's naturally going to increase the cost.
I think there's a whole huge financial argument there. I mean, I disagree with the 40k subsidy anyway. I believe that is a fallacy. I don't believe you could actually recuperate that 40k if you close the course. 28k get his rates. If you close the course, where are you going to get rates from? There's no alternative. So that 40k is rubbish and has been for months.
Thank you very much for doing that. I do appreciate it. I think everybody else here does. We've now got the last speakers to come forward. In fact, there's 3 of them, and the gentleman just spoken is one of them. So if you'd like to come forward and do your bit, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Right, thanks very much. My name's Kit Ledgerwood. I'm a local resident. I've been playing golf at Southwood for nearly 20 years. This presentation is made on behalf of Southwood Golf Course users, their families, local residents, and people who wish to see the course remain open. And we urge the council to find other ways to fulfil their ambitions to build more dwellings in the borough. The general feeling is that we're bemused, frustrated, anxious and angry at the prospect of the course being closed. It seems to us that the council are following bureaucratic guidelines, recommendations and frameworks largely from natural England that have morphed into unchangeable laws. The origin of the problem relates to 3 types of birds which used to be endangered but are at less risk now. And these birds have continued to exist and increase in population in the 40 years since their plight was first identified. And suitable alternative green space, SAN, was identified as the mechanism to protect these birds' nesting areas. Yet there is no scientific evidence as to the effectiveness of this mitigation. So, as we see it, for the sake of these birds, a significant number of people will lose a popular local amenity and social hub where they undertake exercise with great health and mental well-being benefits. Additionally, there is potential loss of employment of 7 full-time staff. Surely this must be an avoidable outcome. Now, as this list shows, in Rushmore we're blessed with lots of natural green space already for recreation, walking, dog walking and jogging or whatever. And yet there is only one accessible, affordable pay-and-play golf course. If that golf course were to close, that would be one less major recreational opportunity for many people in the borough and local area that would be gone. I want to now refer to something in the Council's proposals. I would highlight section para 2.1, which says the aim of SAM is to dissuade residents from using the heathland with its protected plants and wildlife. And the next section I want to mention is 3.8, and I'm going to go on to talk about it in a second. The second section is para 3.8, which says, as a constrained urban authority, options to create SAM are finite. Now these two sentences, as far as we're concerned, serve amply to explain why the whole SAM SPA approach is both flawed in the short term and doomed in the medium and long term. The creation of SAM is part of an effort to just dissuade residents from using heathland. That's all, just to dissuade them. People will not be informed of the place where the council wish them to walk or not to walk. So why would people choose to use newly created parkland at Southwood Golf Course when there are so many other parks much nearer for them to use? Now, given that the core objectives of SAM is to protect spas and that SAM litigation has been in place for now 10 years, what scientific evidence can Natural England provide regarding its effectiveness over that period in mitigating access to the spas? In other words, is mitigation working at all? Similarly, there's no actual evidence to prove that the provision of SAM is even the best way to protect spas. If the council, or Natural England for that matter, are determined to protect spas, then they should perhaps make it clear that they don't want people walking on them, and perhaps should consider punitive methods which would be more directive and more effective. Not that long ago, a strategic board met part of the council's overall approach looking at SAMs and spas. The JSP is its mnemonic, and it had in its meeting it included the comment, it was noted that dog fouling had become a significant issue on a number of spa sites. Now, from my point of view, even the most basic measures of spas are inadequately, even by the most basic of measures, spas are inadequately protected by merely trying to dissuade people. I want to touch now on some of the social and community benefits derived from Southwood Golf Course. Rushmore has proudly acknowledged the benefits of having a golf course in the borough, and indeed benefits itself from holding the annual Mayor's Charity Day every year. More broadly, local government and national government are trying to encourage physical activities to improve fitness, promote healthy living and reduce the impact on the NHS. And golf at Southwood provides these things. Now the golf course provides a social hub for people of all ages, but particularly provides a healthy community for senior citizens. Indeed, a working party of senior golfers meet at the course twice a week to assist in the upkeep of the course under the guidance of the greenkeeping staff. This clearly and undeniably provides social, physical and mental health benefits to them, as well as improving the condition of the course at no cost to either the council or to the public. Importantly, young people can play at a very reasonable cost and without the limitations associated with private clubs, such as cost, handicap certificates, over-restrictions about clothing, only playing with an existing member, all of which put young people off. In terms of physical accessibility, Southwood is unique in that it is a good quality golf course that is virtually level and can be played by golfers who would otherwise struggle or be unable to play on hilly courses. I think some other points on this slide talks about yeah, if you wouldn't mind, it's being a family course that people can afford to play, even as families rather than individuals, cheaper than the cost of going to a theatre or a Premier League football match or another football match. It's a reasonable cost. And also, I just wanted to mention that clearly it's an important consideration because we have received huge numbers of responses both to the consultation exercise and to the petition. And finally, I just want to talk in terms of the social and welfare benefits. For those people who have been playing golf some for 40 years, certainly myself for 20 years, who have established really strong friendship relationships, those will be destroyed as far as we can see. Thanks. Okay. What I want to talk about now, perhaps myths isn't the right word, but we certainly feel that Rushmore Borough Council has edited or adapted the facts to suit their own narrative for the proposed golf course closure. And we'd like to present some of the facts as we see them. Point one, as Mike has just kind of addressed, it cost the council $40,000 a year to subsidise it. And this point was probably the single most important rallying call for the people that we experienced arguing that the course should close. And yet we feel this was disingenuous at best. We all know that most of the $40,000 is rates and the council foregoes for building maintenance, and that other council sports facilities, the recreation centre and the gymnastics centre also don't pay rates. But as Mike had just said, given that if the golf were converted to a SAM, it's unlikely to generate any rates from the council, so we don't know how that $40,000 saving could be realised. Another point that the council made, which again was picked up about it only being for the benefit of 175 members, which was again disingenuous. In the year, in the year to September 2017, almost 30,000 rounds of golf were played at the course. The course is not just there for the benefit of members, it's open to everyone and is enjoyed by many local residents. Point 3 talks about not economically viable. According to the Rushmore Borough Council's statement, at its peak it attracted 40,000 rounds of golf, making a profit of 200,000. So if we make a fairly simple pro rata calculation based on 30,000 rounds, this would indicate that perhaps it could still make a profit in the region of 150,000. Now, we've not been able to view Map Trading's figures at all. We've calculated based on the season ticket holders, the various categories of season ticket holders, and the numbers of rounds played, that the course must be generating in the area of between £400,000 and £500,000 a year. Another point you made about golf being in decline. Golf is the 5th most popular participation sport in England and is currently in the upward turn. An England Golf Impact report showed a growth in golf participation of around 7% in the years 2013 to 2017. And the report also shows that within Rushmore there's a significant demand for golf which is higher than average for the South East. Point 5, one of your statements is about your purpose being our purpose and priorities aim to help and improve the quality of local people's lives. And I think the question we've got is, well, whose quality of life is improved by converting the golf course? We feel virtually none, because there's plenty of walking space already in existence, and certainly it won't benefit the lives of the large number of people who play golf and spend money there. The final point I want to make on this slide is that you said that there might be a slightly reduced housing requirement. And this quote is taken from the Rushmore Borough Council submission in response to some current government consultation. And we think this statement is clearly incorrect. The potential reduction from 436 to 294 is in fact 32%, which in anyone's definition I think is a significant number. And at this point I'd like to hand over to my colleague.
Can you hear me? Yes. Good start. Good evening. I'm Barry Gilmore, and I have been a Rushmore resident for 20 years. Kip has made reference to SANG, and I'm going to expand on this key issue. This slide will demonstrate that we believe that Rushmore has enough SANG to meet the housing target without closing the golf course. The slide shows the housing requirement of 7,848 homes to the year 2032, 15 years ahead. Rushmore has SANG available on the documents that we've seen for 5,531 homes. Slightly different numbers than Peter presented earlier, but his information is more accurate or more up to date than ours, I believe. SANG will become available from the Blandford House development and from Bramshot Farm. The standard occupancy rate accepted by Natural England is 2.4 people per home. But on the basis that the planned homes in Aldershot and Farnborough Centre are predominantly 1 or 2 bedroom homes, a lower occupancy rate of 2 could be proposed to Natural England. This is a logical argument supported by the fact that Natural England had previously accepted an occupancy rate of 1.98 in Farnham. This would provide mitigation for 2,645 homes, which is sufficient to exceed the requirement by 328 homes. These numbers ignore the recent government consultation, which could reduce the overall housing target requirement by more than 2,500 homes. Given that this consultation closes within a similar time frame to the council meetings, and its outcome should be clear by April 2018, why does the council not defer this important decision until they understand government policy? The main reason that Rushmore Council want to convert the course is that according to the rigid planning parameters being used, its catchment area will allow them to redevelop Aldershot Town Centre. This slide will demonstrate how nonsensical the current catchment policy is. The map shows the borough, its boundary, and the Wellesley development. We highlight the spa areas which the same policy is designed to protect. A sang has a catchment area proportionate to its size. Ramshot Farm sang has a radius of 5 kilometres, which does not quite reach Aldershot Centre. Blandford House sang has a radius of 4 kilometres and does reach Aldershot Centre. Wellesley sang is 98 hectares, has a radius of 5 kilometres and also reaches Aldershot Centre. So let's introduce the Aldershot dog walker trying to decide where Fido should be taken. The objective of providing sang is to dissuade him from going to the spa. He could take Fido to Road or Sang, or maybe to the Wellesley Sang, both just down the road. But we're being told that Southwood is needed to provide mitigation for Aldershot redevelopment. So his allocated sang will be the newly created Southwood Parkland, 5 kilometres away. Our slide illustrates how ludicrous this is. How many people would realistically take their dog to Southwood to walk them in their allocated sang, as opposed to the local alternatives? Arguing that the golf course is needed because of its catchment radius is madness. So how did we get into this situation? Back in 2009, the 11 boroughs impacted by the spa agreed a joint sang delivery plan. This was a non-statutory document that made recommendations and gave indicative guidance on sang catchment criteria. Specifically that the catchment of sang will depend on the individual site characteristics and location. However, these recommended criteria are being applied rigidly, creating the present difficulties. You can see that the sang within Rushmore overlap extensively, even without the 3 existing sangs being shown. There is surely a case to be made to Natural England that some flexibility in the sang catchment is justified. I have to say that we have sympathy with Rushmore planners. Having to plan within the constraints of this rigidly parameter-driven policy, which has had the effect of driving up the cost of any land that has the potential to become sang, which in turn has made it more difficult for developers to meet the required levels of affordable housing within their developments. Southwood is the only municipal golf course in the housing market area of Hart, Surrey Heath and Rushmore. It would be a travesty if it was to be sacrificed because of this ludicrous, inflexible, expensive policy. Thank you.
Already introduced myself once, but I'll do it again. So my name is Mike Bartley. I've lived in the area all of my life, and I've been a member of Southwood Golf Club for over 25 years. I'd like to continue by talking about the alternate golf course options in the area that were mentioned previously. So Rushmore has stated that there are a number of alternative golf courses where golfers can turn up and play without being members. We have canvassed those courses and would strongly disagree with this statement. The other courses in the area either do not let non-members play at a weekend, when most people of a working age would want to play. They are prohibitively expensive in comparison to the affordable rates of Southwood, both for their green fees, but also for the membership fees, as you can see in the table. They have limited availability or zero availability for membership, so you can't just turn up and join them. And they're hilly and long and not suitable for those with a disability or the more senior, less mobile golfers. When Southwood Golf Course was established in the late 1970s, golf locally was an elitist sport, only open to the well-off and seen as snobby. The course was established to provide a facility that removed these barriers from entry. To provide a course at an affordable price where anyone could play. Closing the course will make the sport far less accessible to the local community and return it to its previous elitist status. Given the lack of alternatives, and additionally, your survey's response that 41.7% said they would give up golf if the course closes, how does the council reconcile this with its corporate policy to improve the quality of local people's lives and promote health and well-being? I'm going to continue talking a little bit about the impact of the proposed closure on local charities and societies. I've got two short letters I'd like to read out, one from a society and one from a charity. The first one is from Fleet Phoenix. It says, to whom it may concern, since being the club's chosen charity in 2012, the club and its members have raised in excess of £4,000 for Fleet Phoenix alone. I can't imagine the amount they have raised for many other needy and worthwhile causes. Fleet Phoenix is a not-for-profit youth charity that is entirely funded by grants, fundraising and donations. Every donation, whether money, time or resources, is invaluable to us. Communities like Southwood Golf Club, who selflessly give their time and money to support causes like ours, are some of the unsung heroes of our wider community. Without this type of support and commitment to much needed services locally, we would not survive. We sincerely hope that the decision makers can see the bigger picture and the impact of losing this community facility and the impact it will have on the wider community. Regards, Charlotte Tigan and Fleet Phoenix. The second one is from Andy Shaw, the landlord of the Plough and Horses, who run a society. Firstly, I apologise for being unable to deliver this statement in person, but I am at the funeral in Kent today. Over the last 4 years, the Plough and Horses have held their charity golf day at Southwood Golf Course, like many other ignored organisations have done, including the Mayor of Rushmore. Over the last 4 golf days, we, as a pub, have raised in excess of £10,000 for local organisations such as youth football clubs, youth netball teams and St John's Church. I have looked into the possibility of holding our annual event at other venues, and to my horror have worked out that, even after the subsidy that I received from the brewery, the entry fees will rise from £45 to in excess of £65 per person to hold this event elsewhere. Having canvassed the competitors from previous years, they are reluctant to pay these sorts of entrance fees, and for me to reduce the entry fee, the charities would suffer, making it a golf competition and not a charity golf day. Southwood Golf Course is an asset to the Borough of Rushmore and should remain one of the hubs of its community. The facility is an affordable place of recreation that promotes exercise, healthy activity and community spirit amongst all users, regardless of age or gender. Rather than just sticking a close sign on Southwood Golf Course, there should be a compromise that would accommodate walkers and golfers alike or invest in other areas of the borough that are currently being used as walking and exercise areas. Thank you for your time to hear my thoughts on the subject I feel very strongly about. Andy Shaw. These are just 2 letters of support from societies and charities that use the course, and that we've worked with and raised funds for over the years. There are far too many to mention in full, but here are just a few of the others, including the Mayor's Charity Day and the Southwood Charity Pro-Am. Southwood golfers have raised approaching $500,000 for charities over the years. The reason charities use the course is partly because of the course itself, its accessibility and affordability, but also because of the hospitality, cultural values and social responsibility of its golfers. These charities and societies see the golf course as a valuable local recreational asset. They bring revenue not only to the course, but to the local area, and many are repeat visitors. I would like to conclude my presentation by just summarising the key points that we've made to you this evening. The loss of Southwood Golf Course would be an irreversible travesty which we firmly believe the whole community will mourn for years to come. We also fear that with the best will in the world, the land will not be so well used or maintained and will revert to marshland as it once was. The majority of consultation respondents voted to keep the course. Societies that raise money for charity may discontinue. Charities that have said they will be badly impacted. Will the council listen to and consider these views? Point 2. Given the council's corporate policy is to improve people's lives, what does the council intend to do regarding the 41.7% of respondents to the consultation who indicated they would give up golf and whose quality of life is therefore diminished? Point 3. As we indicated in our earlier slides, if the course remains open, there will still be plenty of other spaces for people to exercise and dog walk. If it closes, you'll be condemning local residents of all ages and incomes from enjoying the beneficial effect of an outdoor activity that sharpens the mind as well as exercising the body. We've already explained the fallacy of the council subsidy statement and that 40k saving is most unlikely to ever be realised. Point 5 on the slag you've heard from Barry, I'd like to emphasise there is no scientific basis for the 8 hectares allocation, but even if we accept the 8 hectare metric, that sufficient sand exists within the borough to meet demand. We've heard that the catchment radii forget guidance only, yet they're being strictly enforced. We've demonstrated to you that their application is nonsensical. Sag effectiveness itself is effectiveness as spar mitigation is also questionable. Point 6. Why decide on December 12th? The current government consultation closes this Thursday with the aim of publishing a revised National Planning Policy Framework in spring 2018. This new framework could reduce by 32% the housing Rushmore needs to provide and would take the pressure off of the council in terms of SANG allocation. It would seem logical to defer such a critical decision until you understand better the government's direction. And finally, point 7. You've heard from Andy Short about the lack of affordable alternatives. I read the letter earlier from David Scott about the lack of accessible alternatives. Your consultation responses say that a significant number of people will stop playing golf. We've canvassed other courses and they're not viable alternatives, so we would have to conclude ourselves that a lot of people will simply give up playing the game. The decision you will make will clearly impact a lot of people's lives and well-being. Please think on this. I'm going to hand back to Kit for a few closing words. Thank you for your time.
Now, you may say that we missed the point and that you've got no choice but to apply the government's requirement for house building. But we think there is an opportunity to influence if you have the will. You may also say that Natural England dictate all of the terms, but you can persuade them that 1, SANG is not the best way to protect SPA, more proactive measures would be more effective, 2, that the formulae that apply to hectares per person could be adjusted and not followed blindly, 3, that the catchment radius is only a guideline and not mandatory and should be challenged given the nonsensical examples we demonstrated, and 4, that the formula for estimating the number of occupants per dwelling could be varied, as it was for Waverley, to 1.9 instead of 2.4. If there was ever any willingness to give serious consideration of our views, you could at least attempt to influence such changes. If we were to all assume that none of these things can change, then this whole exercise has been a waste of time and energy for you as well as for us. Right. I sincerely hope that it hasn't been a waste of time and that you'll give our views due consideration. And of course, we hope you change your mind. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Good to, it's nice to see what you've got on there and to talk through it. It's very well planned. Can I ask members now if anybody would like to speak? So I'm going to pass this round. I think this is probably the easiest way. So, Councillor Keith Dibble, Les Taylor, Frank Grattan, Jerry Bridgman, Jonathan Cantu, John Marsh, and David Gladstone.
Good evening, thank you very much for your very strong presentation. I'll repeat the question I asked to the earlier speaker about, and it was, you made reference to, you quoted, I think, the landlord club about a compromise solution. If, and this is a hypothetical question, would a 9-hole golf course be an acceptable compromise to you as regular golfers, taking into account that when it was created in 1977, Southwood was a 9-hole golf course. We heard earlier on about the link between using golf as an educational tool, and would a 9-hole golf course be attractive to younger people wanting to play? Because if you read, and I'm a sports fanatic, so don't think that I'm necessarily against what you're saying, but on your own Southwood Golf Club history page, it says that the 9-hole course proved a great success because it provided, for the first time ever in this area, affordable golf. So if the question was, and this is me asking as a member, not this or corporate body, if it was 9 holes or no holes, is that a sensible compromise worthy to work for with you as regular golfers? If the answer is no, I think you need to tell us that. But I think it's a question that I feel obliged to ask.
The answer is definitely no.
I'm speaking with respect, I'm speaking to the 3 people you've asked to present your case tonight. Thank you.
I'm disappointed in you. Thanks very much for the question. I think it would be worth, as you say, going back to the point you made, that it was considered originally a 9-hole course was successful. I suppose it was successful enough to make them think, the council perhaps, well, let's extend it to 18. I can't say we've done metrics on this, but my understanding is if you go to 9-hole courses, they're much less well patronised. They don't get the revenue and they're much more likely to collapse. I think, this could sound like dog in the manger-ish, and I appreciate that, but I think the game of golf, for many people that play golf, it's an 18-hole game. But, as I say, it sounds dog in the manger-ish, and I suppose the point, our view is, position is, we want the 18-hole course kept open, and don't think it would be as viable as a 9-hole. And feel that possibly would be the death knell of the golf course altogether.
Thank you. Actually, my question was going to be along the same lines of a 9-hole course. With a particular view to the fact that you mentioned that SANG legislation is very restrictive, if not even appropriate to this borough. So I would also ask, would a 9-hole course be acceptable if the officers here looked towards changes or trying to lobby the government to change SANG legislation so that we don't have this situation occurring in the future, which it is likely to do, because we do know, even following the Southwood Golf Course being changed to a SANG, we would need further SANG areas in this borough, which we may not have.
Thank you for your question. Regarding SANG, I think we have demonstrated that you do not need any more SANG to build the 7,848 homes in your plan. So I don't think a 9-hole golf course is a viable option for the council, personally, for the same reason that Kit has mentioned. So do you not accept our argument that you have enough SANG without the golf course being converted? Let me carry on, since there's only one microphone. I absolutely agree, and I hope this has come across, that we think that the whole SANG policy is ineffective, or there is certainly no evidence that it is effective. So the issue here really is how much latitude you can be given by Natural England, if that is the determining body. I understand that you are the competent authority. In other words, you get kicked if you make a mistake. I'm quite puzzled as to why we've demonstrated the catchment areas are open to negotiation effectively. So why is it that you haven't been successful in your conversations with Natural England such that you can move away from this rigid 2 kilometre, 4 kilometre, 5 kilometre radius? I think that's the more relevant aspect to your question than whether it's a 9 or an 18-hole golf course.
Yeah, just to expand on what I was trying to get to the point of, is that a little bit later on, when the members here are able to debate the situation for ourselves, amongst ourselves, I will actually be putting forward a suggestion, in fact, that the SANG legislation generally is not appropriate to this borough.
Thank you very much. Very good presentation. I think you've done well there. My question is that with the ongoing course, I would also ask a question about 9-hole golf, which you've already indicated is not feasible. But within the borough, we do need affordable housing, and I do understand that affordable is not always affordable for everyone. I would ask you if there's another 15 years for looking round for SANGs, and that would you agree with me that the possibility that with such an urban area, would you agree that we need to approach them again to see if we can do away with the SANGs in this area?
Well, I wish you luck with that. That's all I can say, really.
I think, as has already been pointed out, SANG is in itself counterproductive to affordable housing, because SANG drives up the cost of land and the developers hold on to it because they know they've got it. So I think, yes, the SANG policy needs to be attacked because it's actually driving up affordable housing in the borough.
As you said, I think it made the point from your own submission, or the borough's position is that it's a finite saying, is a finite resource. So at some point, Rushmore is going to have the argument and say we've run out of sand under any interpretation of land. So at some point they've got to have that argument, and obviously we're saying, well, why not now before you lose valuable asset?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I have to admit, I've never actually seen a Dartford warbler. I've heard them, I'm told, in the New Forest, and they are on the increase. And it is important that we have diverse wildlife in the country, in our borough. But it seems to me that the way we're going about it is wrong. This sounds who are Natural England? You know, they're the villains of this piece. They have no other remit but the one that we've been actually demonstrated to here. They seem to have no idea of the social, the economic, even the environmental consequences of what they're asking. And isn't it time that we as a council, not these good people, but we as a council, got up and challenged them and said, look, this shouldn't be happening. The government should be given an organisation, an arm's length organisation, the ability to determine housing policy. Now, I don't think there's anybody in this chamber, probably not in this room, who doesn't agree that we need housing, particularly in Aldershot. We need to be able to build houses. We have an increasing population, and the situation is getting desperate. But what hellish organisation is it that says we can have the housing, but we've got to give up a much-used, well-loved, local facility like the golf course? We've had this golf course. Golf course for 25 years, seen it grow from 9 holes to 18 holes. It is popular. You, me, Alex Crawford, I'm sure there must be a few other former mayors here benefiting from it for our mayoral golf tournaments. It's our course. And okay, there are a large number of people using it who aren't members, who aren't residents of Rushmore. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. It shows that we, as a local authority, are providing a facility that is amenable to and open to and welcomes people from around the area. I hate this situation we're in, that we are being asked to choose between this golf course and housing. Now, what I would like to suggest is, and I'm sure we will come to this later on when we discuss this in the round, we've got to look at other ways. Now, is there a possibility with the golf course itself at least releasing some land of it by realigning the actual course itself to make some of the holes shorter perhaps, and at least releasing some? Because I like the idea of looking for other pieces of land around the borough where we can actually meet our SANS requirements without having to go piecemeal and take this one great, well-loved, well-used facility and dump it so that we can build houses elsewhere.
I think there are certainly options there. I think one option that wasn't really discussed earlier is there are lots of courses in this country where the public have rights of way across the course, that they share the course with golfers. That option doesn't seem to have been discussed here at all, but there are lots of examples. Wimbledon Common, there's other courses where the public share the course with the golfers.
Thank you for your presentation tonight. The consultation results also showed that the majority of respondents, 58%, would play at another course more or less often if Southwood Golf Course closed. Does this not indicate that the closure would in fact not be a deterrent from local golf players continuing to play the game?
To count about 42% said they would give up playing golf at all.
I'm going to ask you what you will see as a controversial question. Turning to page 21 on our extensive report on consultation, it says, the course is well used, busy, I played it. The course is great, lovely, good, fantastic, well maintained. The location of the golf course is on our doorstep. The course is good for young people, beginners and learners. How then do you answer the question that the number of rounds has dropped from 40,000 to 25,000 if the course is so good?
Prosperity!
Nice one. I think it had dropped from previous figures, but we've just got recent figures through the year to September 2017, where I don't know exactly, but it's 29,800 and some, just under 30,000 rounds of golf were played in the year to September 2017. So that number is increasing again, and that's in line with the uptake of golf across the country and also in the southeast.
Good evening, everybody. As a Cove and Southwood councillor, I absolutely think this is awful what we have to decide here. I actually, with Councillor Bridgman, a provision of SANG is imposed by our government. I mean, you know, the government don't actually, I feel, they impose these things, all different policies, but do they really know our borough? Do they really know what we want? I don't actually believe they do. And then they put officers and people, obviously on the cabinet, in a situation which is not an easy decision. You know, we have a situation here of housing. It is very, very important, and we're all aware of that. But as a past portfolio holder for leisure and youth, I cannot stand here and say this would be a great thing for the golf club to be shut, because to release, obviously, SANG for affordable housing. Then I question, affordable housing, again, is it going to be affordable housing for people in our borough? No, people are going to come from outside the borough, and there was a blog, and I've been reading them all, where people are saying they want to come to Farnborough. You know, what's the cheapest house on the market at the moment? I should imagine it's no more than 250k. I know I've got sons and daughters 18 upwards. They can't afford it. And of course, you know, Cabinet will find it difficult because we have to have the provision, but we also have to have provision for sports. You know, we have to have the youngsters doing more sport. We have lots of situations where we've got children that are classed, unfortunately, as obese because they're not doing enough activity. Now, I coached, as probably lots of you know, for 11 years for Rushmore Community Football Club, and it became very successful, and obviously it backs on to Southwood Golf Course. But there's a couple of points that I'd like to make about Mac Trading. I actually met Mac Trading some years ago when I became a councillor, and we said to them, you need to do more, you need to be doing more. So I need to ask the gentleman a couple of questions, really. What else is the clubhouse used for? I think the members would find that very interesting. And what's going on now for the provision of youth? What do you do with youth? I mean, I used to coach 4, 5, 6-year-olds, so I'm quite interested to see what you do there. And also, there's another question. You've got 7 full-time staff. Could you just let the panel know what those 7 people do? And I've got some other things, but I'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Right, it's a multiple question. Where shall I start? Right, I'll start with my understanding about the staffing. I'll work backwards. Okay. So this is my understanding. So you've got, I've named names. It's the club manager, Chris Hudson. You've got the senior greenkeeper. You've got 2 full-time greenkeepers working to him. You've got a part-time greenkeeper. You've got the club shop, which is staffed 7 days a week, so I've counted that as 1.5 staff units. And then you've got the catering, where you've got a full-time person running that, and then she too has a cover that I've kind of just estimated it as being 1.5. It's 7 days covered there as well, you know, for lengthy days. So so that's how I reached 7. I did say about 7 full-time equivalent. Okay. Right. The question asked about the young people being encouraged. I mean, you kind of get on a moot point here because we are users of the golf club, and if I'm honest with you, I think many of us would like to be more influential in the running. From Mac Trading's point of view about what they do, I think many of us would like to see them perhaps doing more to encourage young people. We certainly do a lot, I mean, as you know, to encourage, and we're successful with the more senior, I suppose I include myself in that, more senior players, and they seem to have fun. But we would like to do more. There's certainly, I know that the club wants to, and is happy to offer teaching and lessons and things like that, but what I can't answer for Mac Trading, and what I could say is that, perhaps I shouldn't say it, but there are a group of us who would like to think that if the course was still open, and if it was, the tender was put up in 2019, as an understandable bid, that some other way of running the course, which would be a non-profit making venture that would seek to definitely look to encourage the youth and others.
Sorry, can I just add something
Well,
on
I
that? I certainly would volunteer to support any youth training on and around that golf course from an educational point of view and a school liaison point of view as well, because Mac Trading there is no school liaison. Someone has got to do that. These are volunteers.
Sorry. Oh yes, and thank you very much. And the clubhouse, well, sadly, I used it for when my father died. It was used as a social centre there, as a wake, for a place like the wake. So there were certainly wedding receptions, wakes, other birthday parties, and christenings. So all of those, familial ceremonies. Would that be the right term to use? Of all kinds, and I think there are other entertainments that go on there occasionally in terms of quiz nights and things like that for charity and stuff like that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if the club, the figures are out there, 40k for the course, to keep the course and, as you said, rates. But if we were to put the question to you, if the golf club had to be self-sustainable, would you be able to do that? We're in a position, and we've been discussing that for some years now, where we do help lots of people. We do help the football clubs, and it has to come to an end at some point, but we can't always do that. So this is just asking the question whether you'd be able to be self-sustainable if it was to be kept open. Thank you.
We believe so. I mean, the thing is, as I mentioned in the presentation, for, I guess, political, small p reasons, we've not been able to see, understandably, Mac Trading's figures. That's not something we've been privy to. So we've had to make the calculations based on genuine, averages and things like that. But we certainly are setting up, and it just started before the announcement of the possibility of closing the course, sometime a few months before, a group of us have sat together to look at the viability, and we believe that it would be economically viable. That's our belief. Obviously, we would need to see more facts and figures to put a hand on our heart with that, but we have a genuine belief that it would be.
I think on that point as well, Mac Trading runs 6 or 7 courses around the country. Again, we don't have the numbers, so we can't back it up, but our understanding is that Southwood is a flagship course within the Mac Trading group, and actually they get profit out of this course to subsidise their other courses. So yes, we believe it would be a going concern.
Thank you. It's more explanatory. I've actually played Southwood, and it is actually a good course. It's not the best, but it is actually a very good course. But I just want to sort of make some statements really. The impression given is that Southwood is a flat course. The front line, 100%, but the back line, we can't really say that that's a flat course. Even the whole White clubhouse, you have to climb a hill. It's not necessarily flat. There's a fair bit of people that
doesn't mean it's exactly that. I mean, it's not got big.
12-year-old is a player. And instructors prefer them to play 9 because they can get too tired when trying to play for 18. So the proposal earlier was about keeping a 9-hole, but you've already said that you don't really want a 9-hole. So it's either the debate is then going to be between us members that it's open or closed because you don't want a 9-hole course. Just a comment about what you said about other courses, where dog walkers, etc. You're a player, I'm a player, I've seen that happen. The issue we have is actual England are making statements they don't actually like that. Which then leads on to agree or not agree with saying there are rules. We have to abide by the rules that are set. Yes, we can debate it after, but we need houses now. And yes, we can debate that to include the teeth and put forward things to government. But these are the rules that are set now. This is the debate now. So we can't change that. That's the actual debate. And then my other statement, Sue's actually already covered it and you've already answered it quite well, which is the 40k is not really fake, it is real, because obviously if that was removed, you'd obviously have to cover that course. So for instance, the 28k on the rates, the cost would have to obviously then increase practically to cover the 40k.
Who wants a contract for Mac Trading that they don't pay rates?
Well, if that was the issue, all we've got to do is stick a quid on the round of golf and that would make up 40,000. That isn't the issue. It would still be cheap.
You did see the slide about the catchments, did you? So the catchments are negotiable. On what basis do you make that statement?
That's not under debate right now. The debate that we have to deal with is open or close the golf course.
But the reason it's not close the golf course is because you need sand. And you only need sand because
you can't debate the sand.
Sorry?
You can't debate the sand.
Why not?
We can deal with that after. We can't deal with that now. This is the debate on the table. So we have to deal with the rules that are laid in front of us now.
Well,
We can't start changing the rules to suit.
When you say rules, there are no rules that state that you have to follow the 2, 4 and 5 kilometre catchments. So are you following those catchments religiously? Do Natural England insist on them?
An officer to answer that.
How can you have a debate about whether or not to close the golf course when the driving need for that appears to be sand? When we've demonstrated that there is flexibility in the catchments, and it's the catchment that is the only reason that you need the Southwood Golf Course to cover all the shot town centre, how can you disassociate one thing with the other?
Because we can't change the rules that are set now. I think an officer would need to answer that.
Thank you everybody for listening, and thank you very much for not only a really good presentation but answering quite a few difficult questions, and I think you've done very well. Thank you. Right, we're now going to really move on to the cabinet members and officers that can be asked.
We're going to have this debate.
We're going to have a debate now, yes. But the panel questions are coming to the cabinet members and to the officers, yes. You've heard the presentation, you've heard representations as well from the public here, which I'm really pleased they're here to do that. So at this stage, I think the best thing to do before we move on to a debate as such is if you have questions, raise your hand to ask the officers and all the cabinet members any questions. Keith, do you want to start? Sorry.
Well, I've got 4 or 5 questions. I've got 4 or 5 questions. So the first question is, why the rush to make a decision? The second question is, where did the Southwood proposal come from? Whose idea was it? There's been great emphasis on the subsidy tonight. Could we also have clarification that there are subsidies for the Lido and the Prince's Hall users, which I support, so this isn't the only recreational leisure facility that has a subsidy. Will this deliver social housing? And are we really saying the only solution to the critical housing crisis in Aldershot and Farnborough and the future of our declining town centres can only be solved by closing a golf course? Why? How has the Cabinet allowed this to happen? Where is the strategic planning? Where is the forward planning? And my first question, why the rush? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for the variety of questions. I'm not quite sure who wants to start answering that first. Mr. Holland? Can you do anything, or do you want to do a straight over to the cabinet? Sorry, I'm just finding what's on.
I'll find somebody who knows the
Thank you. I'll answer the ones which I feel I can answer, and the ones I can't, I will defer to my colleagues who are officers.
Without being rude, who are you?
Oh, sorry. My name is Martin Tennant. I'm the portfolio holder for Environment and Service Delivery, and within that comes planning policy. So I will be one of the decision makers with my colleague Maurice Sheen, who is sitting here. I'm sure people will indicate who he is, who is the portfolio holder for leisure and youth. So I'm not going to get them in any specific order. We talked about strategic planning, and I think that's a really key issue. So for the last decade, there has been a real emphasis on securing sufficient sound to allow the delivery of sufficient housing within the borough. There has been a number of key areas which have come incredibly close to delivery, and you know, the favourite of the sad stories, if you like, is Ball Hill. Fantastic opportunity, you know, down to the wire, 11th hour opportunity. We secured the funding from the LEP, and at the 11th hour it failed because the landowner put the price up beyond a reasonable amount, and it collapsed. There's similar stories with all the areas that we've looked at over the last decade, where complex ownership issues, reluctance. The key factor is whether you agree with Sam or not, whether it's effective or not. We're under a time pressure, and the time pressure is caused by multiple things. We're all aware we're in a housing crisis in the whole of the UK. I mean, the numbers are staggering in that. We have an obligation to consider all options, and this is the least palatable of all the options. But we've come to a scenario where, as they deteriorate at pace, and we stall in providing sufficient housing for the need that is here, and I'm sure there won't be a person in the room who doesn't know somebody who's struggling to get on the housing ladder, or struggling to buy a house locally, or even rent a house locally. You know, it would be incredibly remiss of us not to consider even the untasteful options, because it's our duty to make difficult decisions and to look at all the options, and this is one. It was mooted a number of years ago and didn't go anywhere under the last cabinet. And the option to look at other sites is continuing. You know, there's some potential sand which may come forward, but the common thread has always been failure to secure that sand unless it's in our ownership. And it's a gamble at the end of the day. The two sands which may come forward, they aren't there yet. And history over the last decade indicates that until it's a done deal, we can't count on it. And what we could do is we could easily spend another decade looking. And I am sure that my colleagues on the Labour benches are as keen as I am to ensure there is sufficient housing for people in need within the borough. And we can procrastinate. So why the rush? That's a very good question. Why the rush? In relation to the government consultation on the new mechanism for calculating housing need, which they've come up with, which is less than what we've suggested as a local, in our local plan. The number we came up in our local plan, we believe to be the right number. We believe it to be defendable from both ends. Defendable from the developer's end who want to build more. Defendable from the end of the people who say, oh, we don't want any more housing, there's enough, close the door, stick a fork in it, it's done. We're okay, we've got a house, don't worry about the other people. So it's got to be defendable from both ends, and the number we've come up with across the SMAR, which is the local authorities which we have to work with, we believe is very accurate. And we've spent a considerable amount of time getting that number right. And it could be easily argued that that's insufficient. But we're confident that's the right number. And what we've got in our local plan, which is out for critique at the moment, is an amount of affordable housing across both towns within the borough, and a reduced amount in the town centre for both. Because if we set the figure too high, it just won't be delivered. So we believe we've got an achievable number, which is somewhere in the region of 30%. So on the nearly 9,000 homes, which we're talking about between now and 2032, that will equate to approximately 3,000 affordable homes and social housing. That's a big number. We've got 1,200 people on the waiting list. It would be remiss of us not to endeavour to sort out the lives of those who need the housing. But be under no illusion that we think this is an easy option. This is distasteful at best. But I'd be amazingly surprised if the solution was to hang around and do nothing for a period of time. You know, fiddle well-rown bones. That's not going to be the right answer. So, hopefully I've answered your questions, Keith, vaguely, and there will be lots of waffle, but here we go.
Yeah, if I could just pick up Councillor Dibbles' question about subsidies. The subsidy of golf course is 40,000, which I don't think is the main issue. It is clearly the same issue, because quite rightly, when you compare the subsidy to other facilities, we've got the Lino at around £180,000 a year, and the Princess Hall at over £300,000.
Thank you very much, sir. Are you happy with the answers? I'm not happy. The next speaker is Liz Taylor.
Yes, regardless of the decision that we make today at the end of the debate, the fact is that the golf course can't actually close for 2 years because that's when the contract finishes. So I would ask the Cabinet member and the officers here, in the course of that 2 years, if they would look at two things. Firstly, is to consider, as I alluded to before, that this is a very urban borough, and as it was stated by one of the speakers, we have a finite amount of area that can be used for sand now and in the future. So at some point in time, we are going to run out, full stop. So I asked the officers, regardless of the decision, to lobby the government to have the same legislation amended so that it takes into account urban areas like this, where the same legislation as it currently is simply unfit for purpose. Now, I would never say that we should have a housing development free-for-all. But we here in Rushmore are part of a housing market area which includes Surrey Heath and it includes Hart. Now, all of us who live in this borough know precisely the fact that the other two areas have got lovely lots of green land, we don't. And it's the fact that we have these three quite disparate districts, that are so different in environment that it engenders very little cooperation. One of the options I think that the officers put forward was to try to get Sands area from within the Hart and Surrey Heath areas, and frankly I think half the time you're going to be onto a loser because they won't want to lose their green land. Now, I would also ask that the officers and the Cabinet member seek government assistance in trying to make the housing market area an independent area which will not treat our three districts as being quite separate. It will be an overall area, and therefore the houses that we need can be mitigated within the Hart and Surrey Heath areas with rather more cooperation than is currently the case, so that we don't end up, as has been the case, where we end up with their housing developments on our borders and they keep the nice green sand areas inside their districts. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions and comments. I can assure you that every effort will be made to lobby over the forthcoming years to improve and make more appropriate the slang legislation that we've got. You know as well as I know that that is a slow process, and we mustn't forget that. In relation to working with our neighbouring boroughs, we're in a bit of a difficult situation, if you like, because of the SPA. It affects all of our borough. Our neighbouring boroughs, it affects proportions of them. So they have areas where they can develop, which are not affected by the requirement to mitigate access onto the protected heathland. We're also in the bizarre situation where we have no green belt, and some of our neighbours do. As far as us sucking up housing demand from our neighbouring boroughs, I can assure you that that just isn't physically possible. We were deeply concerned that we were not going to achieve sufficient site to build what we require ourselves, and we're looking to share some of that requirement with Hart. And luckily, through hook or by crook, we've achieved sufficient development opportunities within our borough to meet our need. Surrey Heath are going to struggle to meet their need without question. They'll either have to undertake a Greenbelt review or they will need to push some of their underachievement on numbers across the Hart. But we find ourselves in the lucky position where we are not dependent on other boroughs to deliver the housing which we need in our borough. And we don't have the space, infrastructure, or SAM to suck up anybody else's underachievement of their numbers. But I assure you, I've been to numerous meetings across the SMART, and there is a real commitment to work together. It's not easy working across boundaries in different boroughs, and it would be too generous of me to say that it was an easy process trying to negotiate access to SAN in neighbouring boroughs. But it's a very difficult process. But I am as confident as I can be that we will make headway. But until it's done, there's no guarantees. And a change in the political landscape or a foul wind could easily blow us off course with negotiating with our neighbouring boroughs.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just add to what Martin said? For members of the audience, I'm Maurice and I'm the Cabinet Member for Leisure and Youth. We are where we are. I mean, none of us would really want to be in this position. We do have to make decisions within the regulations as they are. They are, as our speakers this evening have pointed out, arbitrary and artificial lines drawn on maps, but nevertheless, those are the regulations that we do have to work with. There's no doubt that Southwood is a much loved and used local leisure facility, and in an ideal situation, none of us will be around this table having to debate what we are. Just to respond to the specific point, those debates have already started. The leader of the council and myself had quite a lengthy meeting with Leo Doherty several months ago, lobbying the case for urban areas like Rushmore, where the SANG regulations clearly don't work for us. We're not Leafy Hart, we're not Leafy Waverley. Our land space is limited, and somehow we've got to try and make this work for us. So if we can get a change of heart from government, then certainly that's what we're going to do.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask, with the increase in housing in the area, it just seemed quite strange to me that with big increases in housing, that we're actually going to decrease the actual facilities for people in this area. And it's something that is used well and it should be kept on to help the future people in the area coming in that are going to be 3,000 and 4,000. If you take in affordable housing, I think we should be looking at social housing, because if you look around the area, a one-bedroom flat around here starts at 220,000, which is not affordable for anyone. And we have a period up till 2032, which is a 15-year period to actually stretch out and look round for other feasible areas to look at. And I would press the council and our cabinet members to ask if we can get a dispensation for such an urban area as we are, so we can go forward and not need to close anything. Thank you.
previously stated, I am as keen as the next person to try to lobby government to change the sound requirements. I'm as keen as anybody else. I'm a little bit surprised that you're not as keen as I am to see development brought forward, because I, as I'm sure you do, understand the urgency that we face. I was looking at some stats today about the housing crisis, and effectively, since about the 1940s, we've been underbuilding in the UK massively. We face a scenario where the millenniums, by the age of 30, are 50% less likely to own a house than the baby boomers at the same age. We've seen a decrease in owner occupancy from the early 2000s of 69% of the population down to 62% of the population. We've seen a massive increase in the cost in real terms of people's their expenditure on accommodation, whether it be private rental, mortgages, etc., social housing. We've seen a massive increase since 77 to current time. So we've seen it increase from 14% to 25%. And at the same time, we've seen a reduction in the amount people are spending on food over that period of time. So accommodation is a critical issue. We can be under no illusion that those of us who are comfortable in our beds today have an obligation to ensure that future generations have security of tenure in properties, whether it be social housing, rental, or owner-occupier. And, I cannot express that we find ourselves in a distasteful position with the golf course, but the urgency of the need. There's 1,200 people on the waiting list in Rushmore. There's 100 people in 100 families in temporary accommodation in Rushmore. How long do we need to keep those people there? How long should we deter making a decision?
Sorry, can we just go back to Clive? We're going to finish on something, Clive.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't emphasising that we should delay the building. I'm full in favour, as you are, to actually produce the houses for our residents that need accommodation. That's not what I was aiming at.
Okay.
It's the length of time and space. And also, I look at our construction industry and the viability of what they want and what their profit wants. I think we need to look at them, because their extravagant profit they want from their buildings, to me, is far too high, and which could accommodate what we need.
I couldn't agree more.
I was surprised. I did say I wanted to speak, and then I thought, could the portfolio holder for environment just explain to everyone about how important our local plan is and why we have to deliver that, and if we don't deliver it, what actually happens? I just think it's good for everybody to understand how the decisions are made. Sorry, John.
Okay. A complex issue, but I'll make it as clear-cut as I can. A local plan is designed to get the right development in the right space. There is a recognition that development must occur, but it's the right development in the right space, in the right percentages, ensuring, for example, the ratio of employment land to residential is right. There's a multitude of reasons. It's a complex document made up of hundreds of different policies which interrelate. We've had a cross-party working group working on it for 18 months. And we are ahead of the game here in comparison to some of our neighbours. And there's a very good reason why we want to be ahead of the game. Because I emphasised the right development in the right place. Nobody wants rampant development at the expense of society. And what you don't want is developers running roughshod over you because you haven't got a framework in place. Because, for multiple reasons. If you look at some of our neighbouring boroughs, for example, their planning decisions are almost at appeal. So what happens is a developer comes in and says, I'd like to build that there. And the council say, oh, we don't want it there. Our residents don't want it there. We don't see a need for it there. It's not appropriate. And the developer said, okay, I'll take that to appeal. Because you haven't got the documentation in place to demonstrate that. And what happens is the residents of the borough effectively pay for that appeal. If the council haven't got the appropriate local plan and structure in place and they lose the appeal, it is a cost directly to the council and therefore to the residents, either in reduction in expenditure or physical cost. And it potentially allows developers to put inappropriate stuff in the wrong place. So everybody, who's been involved in the local plan and have worked tirelessly to protect a post office in North Camp, or North Town, I should say, or ensuring there's enough employment land so the houses which are built, people have got jobs to go to, or the multitude of complex documents which are involved in it. It's key that we get this delivered. So we're out for consultation. Natural England, surprise, has said that they're concerned of the integrity of our local plan because we haven't got enough SAN. And we'd like to see it stall because of that. So yeah, that's pretty much. It's a critical document. Everybody wants. Sorry, not everybody wants. Most people want the right development in the right place and not the wrong development in the wrong place. And if you talk to residents, they say, "Oh, this is wholly inappropriate here. This bit here is terrible. It's a rubbish idea. 62 flats on a roundabout, or whatever." But unless you've got the documents in place to stop that, you can't stop it. It just goes to appeal and it costs you money as a resident, and they build it anyway.
Thank you. I just think it's important that we all understand, because as I say, it's a very, very difficult decision and one that we really, really don't want to have to make. And it's nice to hear that the portfolio holders are going to be pushing our local MP to make sure that there's some changes so that we don't have to adhere to such policies and that really aren't great for people that are obviously enjoying what we have in society and what we have in Rushmore. A couple of things about housing. We've all talked about how it's not affordable for youngsters or anybody really to get on the housing market. But if we do have these developments, I don't believe, and maybe the planning team can tell me, that we are in control anywhere of these developers. And so therefore, there's a percentage, I think, of social housing, but is that social housing going to go to our residents? There is no guarantee. And I think as councillors here, it's what we're here for, to make sure that our residents are okay. And when I read on blogs that people want to come to Farnborough, yes, we want people to come to Farnborough, we want them to come to the Lido, we want them to come and use our facilities. But, with the housing, it's, we've got to put our people first for everything. The leisure, this thing with the SANG, it's quite deplorable really that our government puts us in this decision, and it's, as I said earlier, it's not an easy thing. But the developers, that was my question. As a council, do we then have the right to say that this housing is going to be there, forget the saying for a minute, that we're going to build housing and that it's going to be for our residents and it's going to be affordable? I think the answer is probably no, but I'd like to hear.
So with housing allocation, when social housing is built, you have allocation rights on that social housing, and the council have allocation rights. So yes, they decide who goes in that on a need basis, not on necessarily. Years ago there were many more on our housing waiting list than there are now, and through a system thinking, we've whittled those numbers down to those in need, not those in desire, if you like. So, and then there's a point system which is allocated, and it's us who allocates the allocable part of the social housing which we can. Now, as far as people buying houses, clearly we have no influence over the open market. So if developer A builds 500 houses there, of which a certain percentage are social, and we can be affected within that, and the other 450 are on the open market, if you choose to buy one, or if you choose to buy one, or somebody in London chooses to buy one, that clearly is beyond our control.
Sorry, I don't mean to take the table. Sorry. Just obviously for the golf club now, I mean, we're here obviously to discuss all this, and it's really important for them to understand, you know, the way forward, what's going to happen next, you know. And I do ask the question the same as Councillor Dibble and a few others, is does that decision have to be made in December? You know, is it got to be that critical? Can we not see what our MP can do? I know these things all take time, but we're in a position where we have had a lot of people to speak, and it's nice to hear that the people from the golf club actually understand that we do have a housing need as well, and it wasn't just about the golf club. So I do implore everybody, could we just have a little bit more time? If it's not possible, I know how these things work. I've been on cabinet and I know what we have to do, but could we just have a think about it? Thank you.
Let me just clarify how much sand we've got left. We've got 23 houses left in the borough. That's it. That is the total number.
And that's what I'm saying. We want to push these things, you know, and it all seems to take time. Any policies, anything like that, nothing can be changed straight away, like you go to a shop and buy something. You can't do it. I'm just saying, is there any chance, just a little bit of time, just to see if our new MP can actually cut the mustard?
I personally think a decade spent hunting for sand is a long time. Now, we can procrastinate as long as we want, but fundamentally, at some stage, we will have to make a decision. And I think it would be remiss of us to procrastinate much longer. You know, we can wait. We've got to make a decision in a reasonable period of time. This isn't first option. You know, we haven't suddenly come up with this idea to look at this. This is the second time that it's come. It came under the previous cabinet and went nowhere because it was, you know, deferred. And as our options have reduced, it's resurfaced. And, you know, I asked the question of members, how long we want to stall the economic development, the housing need, the regeneration, how long we want to stall it for. I get immensely frustrated with the speed of progress. I've been an elected member for 12 years. I can think of numerous of my colleagues who have been here much longer than me and have seen big projects delivered over periods of time which you just struggle to comprehend. And yes, we could procrastinate, but I think it would be better, and then the sword of Damocles would hang over the golf club for longer. We need to make a decision whether we're going to use this or we're not, so that the golf club can carry on and develop and improve, not lose members willy-nilly to other clubs and deteriorate and then by default collapse. Or we need to make a decision that it's going to be closed and get on with it. One or the other, but procrastination over a period of time where there's uncertainty is neither good for whatever the outcome is. We just need to get to that outcome. And hearing lots of people talk and seeing a consultation and making a decision based on all the information and what you can affect now. If we procrastinate too long and our local plan fails, what are the consequences there? It isn't a scenario which is palatable by anybody, but we've got to make those decisions. That's why we're elected. And to do it in a timely manner. And there are many projects which have been running for many decades, which I would have been much happier seeing a quicker solution to.
Members, thank you. There's several more of you want to speak. There's another 5 or 6 of you. I want you to speak, but I'm very conscious of the time. And I think we've still got to get to the point where we need to decide which way we're going to go, or which ways we may go and take us to Cabinet. So can I ask you to try and be fairly brief? I'm not saying don't speak at all. But can we go ahead? The next person to speak is actually John Marsh. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to emphasise the comments that Martin Tennant has made about the local plan. I would refer members to page 9 of the report, paragraph 2.6, where it says, where the council not to identify a suitable saying, etc., etc., the outcome could potentially be that the local plan is found unsound. Now, if that were to happen, that would be open house for developers, because they would come along with what we might consider inappropriate developments, and they would say, we haven't got a local plan, therefore we'll carry on and do it, which has happened in March, because they haven't got a proper local plan in place. My question for the Cabinet members is, we've been saying, or somebody has been saying, that the Cabinet will make a decision on December the 12th at their Cabinet meeting. I would like to suggest, in fact I'm going to propose, that we add another recommendation to those that were displayed earlier. A decision of Cabinet to be referred to full council for a final decision. I have got lots of other comments to make, but I think most of them have already been covered, so I won't prolong the meeting anymore.
Sorry, it's Terry Bridgman has just nipped out. So Sue Dibble, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Sheehan for his positive words regarding speaking to our new MP. I think Rushmore, we are fairly untreated. We are an urban area in very much a green pocket, and an urban area that is very much forgotten in Westminster. And I think there is something to be said for us being treated as a special case in terms of sound provision. However, I'll go on to my question. Much has been said about affordable housing this evening, but what assurances can we be given that truly affordable housing and social housing will be provided in the developments that we've spoken about this evening? We do not need a proposal that we do not need provision of affordable housing that is not affordable to those on low incomes. And there are many, many families that live in Rushmore that we want to stay in Rushmore near their families, and I think it's something that we are very much forgetting. So I would like assurances that we're not being sold a red herring here, that the Cabinet and the controlling group are true to their meaning when they talk about affordable and affordable to low income families, not families that are on a high income, and also the provision of social housing, which we desperately, desperately need for hard-working families that live within our borough. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. The next one, I think, is Terry Bridgman. You're back.
Yeah. Chairman, I wanted to actually make a suggestion to wind the debate up and to suggest what we might say to the Cabinet members. So,
Well, I think I quite agree. I was just trying to get say the
you want us to do that now, or?
I don't know, how do you feel about it? Because I think we're
Well,
all covering the same sort
I wouldn't want to stop other people from speaking.
No,
so.
I don't either, but
So,
this is something new we're going to discuss.
so shall we let them speak first and then I'll make a proposal?
Yeah, can I ask the remaining members who are going to speak to do as succinctly as they possibly can? Thank you. So, Terry Dunn, okay. Jeremy Priest, then, thank you.
Hello. My question really is about this business of social housing and affordable housing, and picking up from my colleague Sue Dibble. What we have seen happen in the past is we hear so many cases of where developers, who seem to be in the driving seat of all this, developers can agree to provide so much percentage of social housing or affordable housing, and then they can come along with a sob story that, oh dear, it's not economically viable, meaning they're not making the killing that they thought they might do, and without having to produce any hard facts or information, because it's commercially sensitive, they can then sort of manage to get out of that, and the aim of the developers, obviously to maximise their profits, is to build as many expensive, unaffordable houses as possible. That is what their business objective is. And some of them, including people managing Wellesley development, said we need to, quote, rebalance the town in favour of more expensive housing. Now, one man's rebalancing is another man's social cleansing. And quite honestly, what guarantee here with this golf course is there that were we to end up turning this over to Sands, that we're not signing a blank cheque to a developer or a series of developers who then play that card, and we end up getting rid of a golf course just so we can have more unaffordable houses?
It's all intertwined, isn't it? Yes. The local plan sets out the requirement for social housing, and we've looked across the whole borough and we've come up with a figure which we believe is economically deliverable, so that the developer, as we all know, those of us who have the misfortune to sit on the planning department, often come and plead a poor mouth. Economically, it's unviable to provide, 35% social housing, or 30%, or 20%, or whatever the number might be. I'm heartened that the Wellesley development is achieving 35%, and our target is 30. At the time, it was 35, and they've achieved that, and they will achieve that. There is the caveat set down in law that they must demonstrate economically that it is viable to do it. But we just don't take their word for it. It would be somewhat naive to just accept Joe Blogg's developer.
The alarm.
It would be somewhat naive of us just to accept that. So, what occurs is when a developer claims that it is unaffordable to bring the development forward because of the requirement for social housing, it then needs to be independently audited. So you said we can't see the books, it's financially sensitive. Not at all. It's independently audited to check the validity of those statements. And if they turn around and say, I'm sorry, Mr. Developer, it is economically viable to deliver 20% social housing, the independent auditor will tell us, and that will be the end of that argument. So, yes, there is independent scrutiny by experts who are not us to ensure that the developer isn't trying to pull the wool over our eyes by the amount of social housing. Hopefully that helps, and your colleagues on the planning department will agree with the frustration we have with developers who come forward. But what we don't want also is developers sitting on sites. You know, we have a terrible scenario where in some instances there are sites which would bring forward housing and they just sit undeveloped for a massive period of time, which is just inappropriate.
Thank you. It's Jonathan Canty next, and then it's Adam Jackman to finish. And he's also disappeared. So Jonathan. Thank you.
Just a couple of quick questions for me, to Peter and Martin. And firstly, has the council had any conversations with neighbouring golf clubs to see if there's any scope for existing members of South Club to relocate in case of closure? And secondly, Rushmore is not alone as a local authority that's proposing to turn a municipal golf course into parking. So I was wondering what scope of work the authority has done to look into other councils who've delivered similar proposals.
I think your colleague beside you is best fitted to answer that because he's the portfolio holder for Leisure and Youth.
The answer is yes, we have had discussions with some neighbouring golf courses. Of course, no decision's been made yet, so it's difficult to go into specific details there. But I think from the conversations that we have, then there are options there should a decision be made to close Southwood.
More expensive one, isn't it?
Adam Jackman isn't here. I'm assuming he's going to come back, but I think we ought to really move on now. Everybody's happy that we. Okay.
10 minutes.
Yes, I wanted to. Yeah. No, the idea was I wanted to make a suggestion as to where we go, but I didn't want to deprive other people of speaking. So.
Okay, but do you want to speak now?
Yes, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Notwithstanding what the portfolio holder has said, and I agree with. Martin, sorry. Yes, there is a certain amount of urgency because there are developments that we need fairly soon. But we don't need them all. This is the whole point. And he himself has made the point, Councillor Sheehan made the point, Councillor, sorry, I keep forgetting married now.
I'm still Councillor Coulthard.
Okay, and other members have made the point, and officers, that there are other things going on in the market. There are other negotiations of other sites, other options, even the challenging of the sand itself, and looking at the possibilities of changing the criteria to which we have to adhere. So it seems to me that it isn't absolutely urgent that we make these decisions now, and certainly not this one, because this is a big one. This is not a small thing. This is a major public plains area in our borough, which is much loved, much used. If we make that decision now, that's it, gone forever. We don't need to make that decision now. And I would suggest that fine, we carry on all these negotiations, we look at all these other options, we see what else is out there, but we don't make a decision on this for at least a year until we have looked at all those options.
Adam, if you want to speak very quickly, Adam Jackman,
I will make
you really do need to move on now.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll make it very brief because I think most of the points have been covered. But on the idea of actually delaying this decision process now, I think that it's actually a silly way of looking at it. We've delayed multiple times when we looked at these things. If we deal with anything, if I've learned anything in the last 12 years as a councillor, trying to get something changed that's already government policy is not something that can be done quickly. It's not something that the government is currently looking at. It's not something that Natural England is currently looking at making any changes to. So if we start pushing them now, 18 months, 2 years, if we're lucky. The previous cabinet member for the environment portfolio spent a lot of time talking to Natural England, and to be honest, didn't get anywhere on the matter. He spent time talking to the planning inspectorate, and all they managed to do was confuse the subject with Everton Forest. So I think all I can say really is that we're in this position, we have to make a decision on the facts we have now within the rules that are currently set. So that's it, we're stuck. If we want to build more houses, we need more sand. Now, if we go back to what's been put on the presentation this evening and the actual sayings that were listed in the further presentations, not all of those are even within our control. One of them, Blandford's, is actually an MOD saying we can't use it as mitigation land. One of the others that were mentioned is actually in Hart. Again, we can't make use of that. So the figures on there are they're very different to the one that Martin is quoting, that we've only got unallocated sand for 23 houses, but that's because of the differences in how that sand can be treated. So personally, no, do I want to close the golf course? If people want to use it, I haven't got a problem keeping it. But if we want to be able to go houses and we want to be able to control the sand, and that is our only option, then that's the only path we can take.
I've offered you 1,500 homes worth of sand.
We haven't. Let's get the figures.
Do you mean you dispute the figures?
Excuse me, gentlemen.
Sorry.
Well, you've obviously heard, we've had a long discussion, you've obviously heard options put forward as Amy's, which we also need to consider in detail, together with any other options which have been risen. Councillor Marsh proposed that we defer it, so I suppose if we can take that as another option. To defer it.
I think you better take my deferment as a...
Well, the final decision to defer, that's an option, yes.
I said the decision of the Cabinet on the 12th of December should be referred, not deferred, referred to full council.
To full council.
For
final
final
decision.
decision.
Scribbled it down and read it right, sorry. So we've got the original two suggestions or options that was put forward by the Israelis. One was obviously to close the golf course. The other one was to keep it open. It's two very clear decisions. There's also been the idea that maybe we could do a 9-hole course. Nobody's actually said that's really good of it, but it was mooted out there that that was one way forward, or as to carry this forward. So can I ask you to really think about what you want to take forward and discuss it now? You can't really talk to anybody else and just, yes.
Yeah. I think my colleague Councillor Bridgman proposed to defer for a minimum of 12 months is a sensible thing to do. Because if we're going to give the respect to the people from the golf club that came and made a very articulate presentation tonight and thank them, and then say, actually, you spoke a load of rubbish, we've actually been nothing more than patronising towards them. And I think they raised a number of issues that I think are worthy of further investigation. So, go back to the point I made when I spoke. Why the rush? 12 months gives us an opportunity to pursue other options, to continue lobbying, as we've said, Councillor Sheehan said through our new MP, and see if we can get special dispensation. I think, at the end of the day, the guys in the team in the cabinet, it's their team running the government. They must have some leverage there and use that to
to try and get the same change. But I think there have been so many questions asked tonight, it would be foolish to proceed with a vote to close the golf club. I think we need to pursue every option that's available. Chair, thank you.
Yes, I'm just going to ask Ian Harrison, who's the lead officer here, to speak to you now before we make any final decisions. And I absolutely take your point and Terry Goodman's point. I think it's, for me, it's a way forward.
Thank you, Chair. So what I'm going to try and do is just help the process now to try and articulate what we've heard into a proposal, so we can put that proposal to see if it is something that is both proposed and seconded, and then you can take a vote on that, and then if that carries, you have something to go forward to cabinet with. If that doesn't carry, you can continue with a further debate to see if an alternate proposal can be developed. So the proposal, as I'm hearing it, is that the decision regarding the future of the Southwood Golf Course is deferred for 12 months whilst all other options are pursued, and that would include lobbying of government, it would include seeking a special dispensation for the area of Rushmore in the way it is treated for SANG land, and it would include an examination of alternate SANG provision to provide the necessary mitigation for housing development in Rushmore. So I'm hearing that was the proposal, that is a proposal as I heard it. Is that something that's being proposed by Councillor Bridgeman, wording of that nature?
You've got a wonderful way with words, haven't you? But yes, that's more like I said.
Okay, so we have that. That is proposed by Councillor Bridgeman. Do we have a seconder for that proposal? We do have Councillor Dibble there. So, Chairman, if you'll allow me to continue, I'll just take the vote on that. So could members clearly indicate whether they would be in favour of that proposal? So those in favour of that proposal. That's 8 members in favour. Could members indicate if they were against that proposal?
Carried, yes.
And 6 against, so that proposal is carried.
Members, thank you very much. We have got a decision now, so that's something we can carry forward with a very positive feeling. I thank everybody for coming, particularly the speakers tonight, because it's been a long night, and we're all ready to go home and have a drink. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.